All right, folks, get ready. Because today, we're diving into some seriously deep mystical waters. We're tackling the Zohar,
Oh, yeah.
which is, I'll be honest, anything but a light read. This is a foundational text for
Yeah?
Kabbalah.
Yeah.
And I think you'll agree with me, it's a pretty intense one.
It's really something else. I mean, we're talking about a text that claims to reveal the hidden dimensions of reality, the very essence of the divine, you know?
Absolutely. And one of the things that I find so fascinating about the Zohar is the story behind its creation.
Right.
Imagine this. We've got a Jewish mystic named Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai living under Roman persecution in the 2nd century.
Right.
And he decides, okay, I need to get out of here. So he seeks refuge in a cave.
Wow.
But not just for a weekend retreat.
Right.
He stays there for 13 years.
Oh, yeah. 13 years in a cave. I mean, can you imagine the level of introspection and spiritual searching that must have gone on in there? It's incredible. It's like, and it was in this isolated setting that he received the divine revelation of the Zohar.
It really is like something out of an Indiana Jones movie.
Totally.
Right. You've got this hidden cave, ancient wisdom, a secret text.
Yeah.
But then it gets even more intriguing because Rabbi Shimon, he doesn't just rush out to share this knowledge with the world.
Yay.
He hides it.
He does. He does. And that's where things get really interesting. You know, according to our guide, Philip S. Berg, Initiación a la Kabbalah, Rabbi Shimon believed that the world just wasn't ready for the depth and the power of the Zohar.
So he's sitting on this potentially world-changing wisdom, but he holds back. Why? What was he so afraid of?
Well, you know, he feared the misuse of this incredibly profound knowledge.
Right.
Imagine this. This is the 2nd century, right? Life was brutal.
Yeah.
And Rabbi Shimon was acutely aware of humanity's capacity for selfishness, even cruelty. He believed that the Zohar's teachings, they could easily be twisted, you know, and used for personal gain or even to harm others.
I mean, that's a really sobering thought. It's like giving a child a loaded weapon.
Exactly.
They might not, understand the consequences of their actions.
Right.
But how do we reconcile that with the idea that knowledge should be shared?
Right.
Isn't concealing it a form of, elitism?
That's a great question. And it gets to the heart of the debate surrounding esoteric knowledge throughout history. Rabbi Shimon believed that timing was crucial. You see? He was essentially waiting for humanity to evolve, to reach a certain level of spiritual maturity where we could actually handle this wisdom responsibly.
It's like he was saying, hey, this is gift, but it comes with a huge responsibility. Use it wisely for the benefit of all, not just for your own selfish desires.
Precisely. And it wasn't just individual misuse, you know?
Right.
He also believed that the Zohar was meant to be revealed at a very specific time in history. A time when humanity was ready to fully grasp its meaning and apply its teachings for the collective good.
So he was playing the long game, betting on the future of humanity. It's almost like he saw a potential in us that we hadn't even realized yet. So what was this specific time that he had in mind?
Well, that would be the Messianic age. Now, keep in mind, this concept has been interpreted in many ways over the years, you know?
Of course.
But at its core, it's a vision of a future era of peace, harmony, and spiritual enlightenment.
That sounds pretty good right now.
Doesn't it?
Yeah, a welcome change from the state of the world in the 2nd century and honestly even today. So Rabbi Shimon believed that the Zohar was meant to play a role in ushering in this utopian era.
That's right. He saw it as a blueprint for a transformed world, a world where humanity would have evolved beyond, those baser instincts and embraced a higher level of consciousness.
It's almost like he saw the Zohar as a seed that needed the right conditions to germinate,
yes,
to blossom into its full potential.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And that idea of the Zohar's potential for transformation brings us to another fascinating detail from Rabbi Shimon's time in the cave.
Okay.
Remember, he wasn't alone in there. He had his son, Rabbi Elazar, with him.
Right. I remember reading that when Rabbi Elazar finally emerged from the cave after those 13 years, he was covered in wounds.
He was. The Zohar itself describes those wounds as being inflicted by the sheer power of the wisdom he was exposed to.
I mean, that's a powerful image. It makes you realize this isn't just theoretical knowledge. This is something that can deeply affect you, even physically.
Absolutely. It highlights the potent nature of the Zohar's teachings, suggesting that they can be transformative, even dangerous if approached without the proper preparation or respect.
It's like handling radioactive material. You need protective gear. So what does all of this tell us about Rabbi Shimon's decision to conceal the Zohar?
I think it reinforces his wisdom, his foresight. He understood that true knowledge, especially spiritual knowledge, is not something to be taken lightly.
Hmm.
It requires a certain level of readiness,
Yeah.
a capacity to handle it responsibly and ethically.
It's like he was saying, hey, this is powerful stuff. Don't mess around with it. So how does this ancient text, born in a cave centuries ago, connect to our lives today?
That's the question, isn't it?
It is.
If Rabbi Shimon was right about needing a certain level of readiness, are we any closer to being ready for the Zohar now?
That is a question I am very eager to explore,
Yeah.
especially considering that the Zohar is no longer hidden away in a cave. It's out in the world,
Right.
being studied and interpreted by people from all walks of life.
It is. And that journey from obscurity to accessibility is a fascinating story in itself.
Well, lead the way. I am ready to follow the Zohar's path out of that cave and into the world.
All right. Then buckle up, because the Zohar's journey is anything but straightforward. It involves secret societies, influential scholars, and a whole lot of debate about who has the right to access and interpret its wisdom. So we left off with this incredibly potent, potentially dangerous text hidden away for centuries. So how does it actually make its way into the world?
That's the big question, right? It's
Yeah.
not like Rabbi Shimon was posting it on social media back then.
Yeah, not quite. The Zohar's journey out of that cave it's shrouded in a lot of mystery.
Right.
It seems to have circulated, kind of in whispers among select groups of mystics for centuries.
Right.
You can imagine these clandestine gatherings, huddled over these ancient manuscripts debating the secrets of the universe.
Yeah.
But it really wasn't until the 16th century that things really started to change.
So what happened in the 16th century? Did the Zohar finally have, its big debut on the world stage?
Not exactly a debut, but more of a resurgence.
Okay.
This was the time of what's known as the Golden Age of Safed. This was a city in northern Israel that basically became a hotbed of Kabbalistic learning. Think of it as Silicon Valley for Jewish mystics.
Safed, the mystical Silicon Valley. I love it.
Yeah.
Who were some of the key players, in this Kabbalistic renaissance?
Well, one of the most influential figures was Isaac Luria, also known as the Ari.
Okay.
And he really revolutionized the way that Kabbalah was understood.
Got
He
it.
developed, a very complex cosmology that really emphasized this idea of a cosmic exile and redemption.
So he's taking these ancient teachings and reframing them for a new generation.
Yeah,
It's like Kabbalah 2.0.
that's a great analogy.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is that Luria, like Rabbi Shimon before him,
Yeah.
lived during a time of tremendous upheaval for the Jewish people.
Right.
This was, right after the Spanish Inquisition,
Right.
which had forced,
Right.
many Jews to flee their homes, seek refuge in new lands.
It makes you wonder if those periods of turmoil, of displacement and uncertainty, if they somehow create this yearning for deeper meaning, a search for answers beyond, just the physical world.
It's a compelling theory. I mean, when the external world feels unstable,
Yeah.
people often turn inwards,
Right.
seeking solace and guidance from, their spiritual traditions.
Yeah.
And during this golden age of Safed, the Zohar became a focal point for that spiritual searching.
So we're starting to see the Zohar emerge from the shadows, becoming more widely studied, debated.
Yeah.
But was it still considered a secret text, like
Yeah.
something that was, reserved for an elite few?
It was still a very complex text that required dedicated study.
Right.
But figures like Luria really began to make it more accessible to a wider audience.
Okay.
He developed new systems of interpretation and practice, making the Zohar's teachings more, relevant to the lives of, ordinary people.
It's like he's taking this, high-level esoteric wisdom and translating it into a language that people can understand and apply to their daily lives.
Precisely. And that trend of making Kabbalah and the Zohar more accessible, it continues into the modern era, really.
Okay, so fast forward a few centuries.
Yeah.
The Zohar is no longer hidden away in a cave. It's being printed, it's translated, it's even discussed on podcasts like ours.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think Rabbi Shimon would think of all of this?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Would he see it as a fulfillment of his vision? The Zohar's wisdom finally reaching the world at the right time?
Yeah.
Or would he still be concerned about, the potential for misinterpretation, misuse.
I mean, it's like the genie's out of the bottle at this point, right? You can't really put it back in.
You can't.
But I guess that's the challenge with any powerful knowledge, right? It's striking that balance between accessibility and responsibility.
Exactly. And that tension is especially apparent in the modern era. With the rise of the internet, the proliferation of information, including spiritual information.
It's like a wild, wild west of spirituality out there.
Totally.
Everybody's got their own interpretation, their own spin on, ancient wisdom. How do we even know what's authentic anymore?
That's a valid concern. And it's important to approach any spiritual tradition with a healthy dose of discernment.
Right.
But I think it's also important to remember that the Zohar is not a static text. It's been interpreted and reinterpreted throughout history.
Yeah.
Adapting to different contexts, different cultures.
So it's a living tradition, constantly evolving.
Exactly. And that evolution is reflected in, the different schools of thought and interpretations within Kabbalah itself.
Okay, that makes sense. So we've got the Zohar, this incredibly powerful text, finally out in the world, but still shrouded in, a certain amount of mystery, a certain amount of debate. What's the next step in our deep dive?
Well, let's dive into the heart of the Zohar.
Okay.
Explore some of its key teachings, some of its principles. Because if we really want to understand its impact, we need to kind of grasp the ideas that have captivated and challenged minds for centuries.
All right, lead the way. I am ready to explore the Zohar's inner workings.
First, we need to address the fact that the Zohar's language, it's anything but straightforward. It's full of symbolism, metaphor, and allegory. It's not a text you can just skim and expect to grasp its deeper meanings.
I can attest to that. It's like trying to decode a secret message sometimes.
It is. So give me an example. Like, what's one of those symbolic elements that's central to the Zohar's worldview?
Well, one of the most fundamental and visually compelling is the Tree of Life.
The Tree of Life? Okay, yeah, I've heard that term before, but to be honest, I always just kind of pictured cheesy New Age posters.
I know what you mean, but trust me, the Zohar's take on the Tree of Life is anything but cheesy.
This is a complex, a profound symbol that represents the very structure of the universe, the flow of divine energy, the path of spiritual evolution.
Okay, now you've got my attention.
Yeah.
Break it down for me. How can a tree represent all of that?
Imagine a tree with roots, right, that delve deep into the earth, drawing nourishment from the hidden depths.
Yeah.
Those roots represent the Ein Sof, the infinite source of all creation.
Okay, so the roots are like the foundation, the source of everything.
Yeah.
What about the trunk?
Yes.
What about the branches?
The trunk represents the process of creation itself, the way that the divine energy flows outward from the Ein Sof, right?
Okay.
And the branches represent the different levels of manifestation, the way that energy unfolds into the multiplicity of forms that we see in the world.
So it's like a family tree for the cosmos.
Yeah.
Showing how everything is interconnected and ultimately stems from the same source.
That's a great way to put it. And what's fascinating is the Zohar doesn't just see the Tree of Life as this static image. It's a dynamic process, a constant flow of energy between the different levels of reality.
So it's not just a map of the universe, but also a guide to how the universe works, how that energy moves and transforms.
Exactly. And what's really cool is that the Zohar connects the Tree of Life to our own spiritual development. It teaches that each of us has this spark of the divine within us. And our journey is to cultivate that spark, to move upwards on the Tree of Life towards, greater unity with the source.
So we're all kind of climbing the Tree of Life towards enlightenment.
In a way, yes. And the Zohar provides a framework for understanding that journey, the challenges that we might encounter, and the qualities that we need to cultivate along the way.
This is making me want to draw a giant Tree of Life on my wall and start mapping out my spiritual progress.
I wouldn't recommend drawing on your walls,
Okay.
but I love your enthusiasm.
Yeah.
And the Tree of Life is just one of many symbols that the Zohar uses to convey its wisdom. Another important one is the concept of light and vessels.
Light and vessels.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm intrigued, but honestly, it sounds like we're about to start a pottery class.
Not quite pottery, but we are talking about containers. So in Kabbalah, light represents the divine energy, the life force that flows through all of creation.
Okay.
The vessels are the different forms that contain and channel that light.
So it's like the light is the electricity, and the vessels are I don't know, the lamps that give it shape and allow it to illuminate a room.
That's a great analogy. And just like lamps can be different shapes and sizes, so too can the vessels for spiritual light. We're talking about everything from, physical objects to human souls to even, abstract concepts.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this light and vessels idea kind of plays out. But you mentioned something earlier that caught my attention. You said that sometimes those vessels can become broken or imperfect. What did you mean by that?
That's where things get really interesting. The Zohar teaches that when those vessels are flawed, the light can't flow through them properly.
Okay.
It's like trying to pour water into a cracked pot.
Yeah.
It leaks out, creates a mess.
Right.
And when those spiritual vessels are broken, it creates chaos, imbalance in the world.
So broken vessels are kind of like spiritual glitches in the matrix.
You could say that. And those glitches can manifest in all sorts of ways. Personal struggles, societal conflicts, even natural disasters.
Wow, that really puts a whole new spin on the idea of, taking responsibility for our actions.
It does.
If we're all, vessels for that divine light,
Yeah.
then our choices, our behaviors, even our thoughts can affect the flow of that light in the world.
Exactly. And the Zohar teaches that one of our primary purposes as human beings is to help repair those broken vessels, to restore harmony, to restore balance to the universe.
So we're not just passive recipients of that light. We're active participants in its distribution and flow.
That's the beauty of the Zohar's teachings, It empowers us to see ourselves as agents of change, as co-creators with the divine.
This is starting to feel like a superhero origin story.
Yeah.
We're all imbued with this incredible power, this potential to heal and transform the world.
I love your enthusiasm. And the Zohar offers, a whole range of practices and teachings that can help us tap into that potential to become those spiritual superheroes you're imagining.
Okay, sign me up. What are some of those practices? How do we actually go about repairing those broken vessels and restoring balance to the universe?
Well, the Zohar emphasizes practices like meditation, studying sacred texts, and performing acts of kindness and compassion.
So it's about cultivating our own inner connection to the divine and then expressing that connection through our actions in the world.
That's a great summary. It's about becoming a conduit for that light, allowing it to flow through us and out into the world.
I'm starting to see how all of this connects to, Rabbi Shimon's belief that the world just wasn't ready for the Zohar. It's not just about understanding these concepts intellectually.
Right.
It's about embodying them, putting them into practice in a way that benefits ourselves and the world around us.
Exactly. And that requires, a certain level of maturity, a willingness to take responsibility for our own spiritual growth and its impact on the world.
So the question remains, are we ready?
That's a question for each individual to grapple with. But I think exploring the Zohar, even if it raises more questions than answers, can help us move closer to that state of readiness.
I agree. It's a challenge, but it's also an invitation. It's a call to step into our full potential as spiritual beings.
And speaking of potential, there's one more key concept that we need to explore, one that might just blow your mind.
Okay, you've got me hooked. Lay it on me. What's this mind-blowing concept? Okay, so you were about to tell me this mind-blowing concept from the Zohar.
Right. It's called the Tzimtzum.
Tzimtzum sounds kind of like a new yoga pose or something.
Yeah, maybe we can invent one.
Yeah.
But seriously, though, the Tzimtzum it's one of the most radical ideas in Kabbalah.
Okay.
It literally means contraction or concealment.
Contraction, concealment. I think I'm more confused now than I was before.
I know, it's a head scratcher. But think about it this way.
Okay.
We've been talking about the Ein Sof,
Right.
the infinite source of all creation,
Right.
This boundless light.
Yeah.
But if everything is infinite,
Yeah.
then how is there even room for a finite universe?
Mm-hmm.
How can there be individual beings, distinct forms, if everything is ultimately one?
Okay, yeah, I'm starting to see the problem. It's like trying to fit the ocean into a teacup.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Kabbalists, they came up with this idea of the Tzimtzum to kind of explain how the infinite creates the finite.
Okay.
They said that in order to create the universe, the Ein Sof had to contract itself, to withdraw its infinite light.
To basically create a space for something other than itself to exist.
So it's like the Ein Sof is making room for the universe, like taking a step back to allow creation to unfold.
That's a good way to visualize it.
Okay.
It's like a self-imposed limitation.
Yeah.
A voluntary act of concealment.
But if the Ein Sof is concealed,
Right.
how does anything get created? It's like turning off the light switch.
Right.
Everything just goes dark.
Okay, well, that's where it gets even wilder.
All right.
The Zohar teaches that even though the Ein Sof contracted itself,
Yeah.
it left a ray of its light
Okay.
within that void,
Yeah.
within that empty space.
So it's not a complete shutdown. There's still like a connection to the source.
Exactly. That ray of light, that spark of the divine,
Yeah.
is what sets the whole process of creation in motion. It's like a seed planted in the fertile ground of the void.
Okay, so the Tzimtzum is like making space for a garden.
Yes.
And that ray of light is like the first seed. That's a beautiful analogy. And from that one seed, the entire universe blossoms with all its complexity and diversity.
Okay, my mind is officially blown. So the Ein Sof contracts,
Right.
creates this void, leaves a spark of light,
Yeah.
and boom, universe, like a cosmic magic trick or something. But how does this idea of the Tzimtzum actually apply to our lives? It all seems, very abstract and far out.
It might seem abstract, but it really has profound implications for the way we understand ourselves and our place in the universe.
Okay.
Think about it. If the Ein Sof, the ultimate source of all being, had to limit itself in order to create,
Yeah.
what does that tell us about our own creative potential?
So you're saying that we also have the capacity for this kind of self-limitation.
Yes.
This Tzimtzum within ourselves.
Exactly. We often think of limitations as negative things, as obstacles to our growth.
Right, yeah.
But what if those limitations are actually necessary for creation? What if they're what allow us to give shape to our ideas, to manifest our dreams into reality?
So it's like the sculptor who chisels away at the stone,
Yes.
imposing limitations on the material
Yes.
in order to create a beautiful form.
That's a perfect example. The Tzimtzum is about recognizing the creative power of limitations. It's about working within constraints,
Yeah.
focusing our energy and choosing to manifest specific forms from that infinite potential that exists within us.
This is changing the way I think about everything. It's like you're saying that our limitations, our boundaries,
Yeah.
are not things to be feared or overcome,
No.
but embraced as essential elements in the creative process.
Exactly. And it connects back to the idea of the vessels.
Right.
Remember, those vessels are the containers for the divine light. And those containers, those limitations, are what allow the light to manifest in specific ways, to take on different forms, to create the diversity and richness of the world.
It's like saying that the darkness is just as important as the light, the void just as important as the fullness.
The beautiful way to put it. And the Zohar encourages us to see that interplay between those opposites, to recognize that creation is a dance between expansion and contraction, between revelation and concealment.
Okay, I think I need to sit with this for a while. Let it all sink in. This idea of the Tzimtzum is both mind-boggling and strangely liberating at the same time.
It is, and it's a reminder that the Zohar is not just this collection of mystical stories and symbols. It's a profound system of thought that offers a unique perspective on the nature of reality,
Right.
and our place within.
It's like a cosmic puzzle with all these interlocking pieces, and then when you put them together, they reveal this bigger picture.
Exactly. And I think that's one of the reasons why the Zohar continues to fascinate and challenge people centuries after it was first revealed.
Yeah.
It's a text that invites us to think differently, to see the world through a new lens.
And to engage with, those big questions, the mysteries that lie at the heart of existence.
Absolutely. And those questions, that sense of wonder, they're just as relevant today as they were in Rabbi Shimon's time.
Well, on that note, I think it's time to wrap up our deep dive into the Zohar.
I agree. But before we go, I'd like to leave our listeners with a final thought-provoking question.
Okay.
Something to ponder as they continue their own explorations. Given the Zohar's emphasis on the power of intention and action,
Right.
could its teachings provide guidance for navigating the complex ethical dilemmas that we face in today's world?
That's a great question. And I think It's one that deserves very careful consideration. The Zohar reminds us that we're not just passive observers in this universe.
Right.
We are active participants, co-creators with the divine.
We are.
And that realization, I think, comes with a tremendous responsibility.
It does. And as we navigate the complexities of modern life, I think the Zohar's wisdom can offer us, a really valuable perspective,
Yeah.
reminding us of our interconnectedness, our potential for transformation, and our responsibility to use our knowledge and our power wisely.
Well said. And on that note, it's time to bid farewell to the mysteries of the Zohar, at least for now.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
And to all of our listeners out there, keep seeking, keep exploring, and keep shining your light.